The research lab was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Dr. Yuna stared at the screen in front of her, unable to believe what she was seeing. Her hand shook as she zoomed in on the data again. This couldn't be real, but the numbers didn't lie. She had been studying an old probe for 3 weeks now. The probe had drifted into Galactic Council space from the Forbidden Zone around Earth. Everyone knew about Earth. It was the most dangerous place in the galaxy. No one could go there. No one could even get close. A massive barrier surrounded the entire solar system. Any ship that tried to enter simply vanished. Gone forever! Not even debris remained. The Galactic Council had one absolute rule: stay away from Earth. The humans who once lived there were extinct. That's what everyone believed. The planet had been locked away for 3,000 years. Whatever happened there was ancient history now, but this probe changed everything. Yuna looked at the data again. The probe contained music, pictures, and mathematical formulas. It had stories and maps, but most importantly, it had a date. The probe was built 400 years after Earth's so-called extinction event. Humans had still been alive. They had built this probe. They had sent it out into space. Her heart pounded. If humans were alive 400 years ago, what about now? She found something else in the probe's data. Equations. Complex formulas that showed impossible technology. The humans had figured out how to transfer consciousness. They had solved faster-than-light travel without the standard engines everyone else used. They had done things that should be impossible. Yuna knew she had to tell someone, but who? The Galactic Council would confiscate her research. They would destroy the probe. They wanted everyone to forget about Earth. She thought of Captain Minho. They had served together on a research mission 5 years ago. He was smart, brave, and most importantly, he asked questions that others were afraid to ask. She sent him an encrypted message. 2 days later, Minho arrived at her lab in the middle of the night. He was a tall figure with sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. His species, the Calraxians, were known for being excellent navigators. Minho was one of the best. Show me, he said simply. Yuna played the probe's data for him. She showed him the date. She showed him the impossible technology. She showed him what it all meant. Minho was silent for a long time. Then he said, "They're not extinct." "No," Yuna agreed. "I don't think they are. The Council has been lying, or they don't know the truth." Minho shook his head. "They know. They've been guarding that barrier for 3,000 years. They know exactly what's inside." Over the next few weeks, Minho gathered a small crew. He chose people he trusted, people who had reasons to question the Council, people who had nothing left to lose. Engineer Do-hyun was first. He was brilliant with ship systems. He could fix anything and improve what couldn't be fixed. He had lost his family when the Council refused to send aid during a plague. He had no love for their rules. Pilot Hana came next. She was fearless and fast. She had lost her entire world in a war that the Council had ignored. She flew like the ship was part of her body. She said yes without hesitation. Science Officer Jiho was the final member. He was young but had a mind that worked differently than others. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. He had been working on theoretical physics that the Council had banned. He believed the barrier around Earth could be bypassed. He had equations that might work. They met in secret. Minho explained the plan. We steal a research vessel. We go to Earth, we make contact. We find out why the Council has been lying. We'll be criminals, Do-hyun pointed out. We already are, Hana said. The moment we started asking questions. Can we survive the barrier? Yuna asked Jiho. The young scientist pulled up his calculations. The barrier exists in 11 dimensions. It's designed to erase anything that enters using normal space. But if we phase shift between dimensional frequencies, we might slip through. Might? Do-hyun raised an eyebrow. 73% chance of success, Jiho said. And if we fail? Hana asked. We cease to exist. No pain, no awareness. Just gone. The crew looked at each other. These were bad odds. But doing nothing meant living with the lies forever. I'm in, Yuna said. One by one, the others agreed. They chose the dauntless path, a fast research vessel with experimental engines. Minho used his security clearance to access the ship. They loaded supplies for a 6-month journey. Jiho installed his phase shift equipment. Do-hyun upgraded the shields. Hana programmed the fastest escape route out of Council space. On the night they left, alarms sounded across the station. The Council knew immediately what they had done. Warships launched to intercept them, but Hana was too good. She flew the dauntless path through asteroid fields and nebula clouds. She made jumps that should have been impossible. They escaped into deep space. For 3 weeks they traveled toward the Forbidden Zone. Long-range sensors showed Council ships following them, but the ships kept their distance. They were waiting to see if the thieves would really be stupid enough to approach the barrier. As they got closer to Earth's solar system, the crew felt the weight of what they were doing. They were breaking the galaxy's most sacred law. They were risking not just their lives, but their very existence. Yuna couldn't sleep. She kept studying the probe's data. The more she learned, the more questions she had. Why would humans seal themselves away? What had they become? What was the Council so afraid of? Minho spent his time on the bridge, staring at the star maps. Earth was a small blue planet circling an average yellow star. It looked peaceful, harmless. But he had learned that the most dangerous things in the galaxy often looked innocent. Do-hyun prepared the ship for anything. He reinforced every system. He created backup power supplies. He built emergency protocols for situations he couldn't even imagine. Hana practiced flight maneuvers. She ran simulations of the barrier crossing 1,000 times. Each time she found new ways to improve their chances. Jiho barely left his station. He refined his calculations constantly. The phase shift had to be perfect. One mistake and they would all die. Finally, they reached the edge of the Forbidden Zone. The barrier shimmered in front of them like a wall of liquid light. It was beautiful and terrifying. Sensors showed readings that made no sense. The barrier existed in multiple dimensions at once. It was alive in ways that shouldn't be possible. A transmission came through. A hologram appeared on the bridge. It was a Council arbiter, one of the highest authorities in the galaxy. "Turn back," the arbiter said. "You don't understand what you're attempting to release." Earth was not quarantined to protect the galaxy from humans. It was quarantined to protect humans from becoming what they're destined to be. Minho looked at his crew. Last chance to turn back. No one moved toward the controls. No one suggested retreat. "Take us through," Minho told Hana. The pilot's hands moved across the controls. The phase shift drive activated. The ship began to vibrate. Reality started to bend around them. They were going to Earth. Whatever waited on the other side, they would face it together. The ship screamed as it hit the barrier. Every alarm on the dauntless path went off at once. The lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Jiho's phase shift drive was working, but barely. The ship vibrated so hard that Yuna thought her bones might break. She gripped her seat and tried not to scream. "Hold together," Minho shouted over the noise. "Just hold together." Do-hyun's fingers flew across his console. He was redirecting power, reinforcing shields, doing everything he could to keep the ship from tearing apart. Sweat poured down his face. Then the vision started. Yuna saw Earth, but not as it was now. She saw Earth from the future. Or maybe the past. Or maybe from a timeline that never existed. Humans spread across the galaxy like a wave. They weren't conquering. They were transforming. Every species they touched changed, evolved, became something more, but also something less themselves. She saw humans who could move through walls. Humans who lived in stars. Humans who existed as pure thought. They were beautiful and terrible. They were gods who had once been mortal. Minho saw the same thing but different. In his vision, humans were teachers. They showed other species how to transcend their physical forms. But with that gift came a curse. Once you evolved, you could never go back. You could never be what you were. The old you died and something new was born in your place. Hana saw war. Not the wars she had survived, but wars between beings who could reshape reality itself. She saw planets torn apart by thoughts. She saw stars going dark because someone simply wished them away. The power was too much. The responsibility too heavy. Do-hyun saw nothing but equations. Numbers that explained how consciousness could spread like a virus. How one evolved mind could trigger evolution in others. How change once started could never be stopped. Jiho saw the truth of the barrier. It wasn't a wall. It was a mirror. It showed you what you would become if you crossed it. It gave you one last chance to turn back. But they were already too far in. The choice was made. The ship lurched forward. The vision stopped. The shaking eased. The alarms went silent. They were through. For a moment, nobody spoke. They just sat there, breathing hard, grateful to be alive. Status report, Minho finally said. His voice was rough. Do-hyun checked his screens. His face went pale. Captain, we have a problem. What kind of problem? The barrier. It's sealed behind us. Do-hyun's hands moved across the controls, checking and rechecking his readings. The quantum signature is wrong. We violated the barrier by forcing through. It's reacted to that violation. Explain it simply, Minho said. Do-hyun looked up. His eyes were full of fear. We can't go back. The barrier will let things pass through it normally from the outside. But we broke through illegally. Now it won't let us leave, ever. We're trapped. The words hung in the air like poison. How trapped? Hana asked quietly. Permanently trapped. The barrier has marked our quantum signature. If we try to cross back, we won't just die. We'll be erased from every timeline. It'll be like we never existed at all. Yuna felt her chest tighten. She had known this was dangerous. They all had. But she hadn't expected this. A one-way trip. No going home ever. Can you fix it? Minho asked. Do-hyun shook his head. I don't even understand it. The barrier is using physics I've never seen before. It's 11-dimensional quantum mechanics mixed with something else. Something I don't have words for. Jiho was already working at his station. Let me see the data. While the science officer studied the barrier signature, Minho made a decision. We go forward. We came here for answers. We're going to get them. Hana, take us toward Earth. The pilot nodded and engaged the engines. The ship moved deeper into the solar system. As they traveled, the sensors began picking up readings that didn't make sense. Earth's technological signature was massive. It was orders of magnitude beyond anything in the known galaxy. The planet was covered in structures that seemed to grow and change. Energy readings pulsed in patterns that looked almost alive. This isn't an extinct civilization, Yuna said. This is an active, advanced civilization. Very advanced, Jiho added. He had stopped looking at the barrier data and started analyzing Earth instead. I'm detecting quantum processing on a planetary scale. It's like the entire planet is one giant computer. No, not a computer. Something more organic. A brain, maybe. Are there humans down there? Minho asked. I'm picking up billions of life signs, but they're strange. They phase in and out of normal space. Sometimes they're there. Sometimes they're not. It's like they exist in multiple states at once. They passed the orbit of Mars. Then they crossed into the space around Earth's moon. Still no weapons fired at them. No warnings came. The planet just waited. They know we're here, Hana said. They have to know. Then why aren't they responding? Do-hyun wondered. As if answering his question, a beam of soft blue light reached out from Earth. It wasn't an attack. It was gentle, almost welcoming. The beam touched the ship and the engines stopped responding to Hana's controls. I've lost helm control, she reported. She didn't sound panicked, though. The light was guiding them, not forcing them. We're being pulled down. Where? Minho asked. Jiho checked the trajectory. Pacific Northwest region. North American continent. There's a structure there. It looks like a landing facility, but it's organic, growing out of the ground instead of built on top of it. The ship descended through Earth's atmosphere. The crew watched through the windows as they saw the planet for the first time with their own eyes. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, green forest, white clouds. It looked peaceful. Like a paradise, but they knew better now. This planet held beings who had evolved beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. This planet held humans who could reshape reality. This planet was the reason the Galactic Council had created their most important law. The landing facility came into view. It was made of something that looked like crystal and wood and metal all at once. It shifted colors in the light. Buildings grew out of the ground like trees. Pathways moved and changed like rivers. The blue light set them down gently on a landing pad. The engines powered down on their own. The ship's systems were responding to signals they couldn't even detect. Minho stood up. Everyone stays calm. We came in peace. We'll act like it. Do-hyun checked his scanner. 3 life forms approaching. They're humanoid. They're walking. Not floating or phasing or anything weird. Just walking. The crew gathered at the airlock. Minho opened it slowly. Fresh air rushed in. It smelled like flowers and rain. The gravity felt comfortable. The temperature was perfect. 3 humans stood waiting at the bottom of the ramp. They looked normal. 2 women and 1 man. They wore simple clothes. They smiled. One of the women stepped forward. She had kind eyes and a gentle voice. "Welcome to Earth. We've been expecting you. My name is Taeyeon. I'm the ambassador for first contact situations." The man beside her nodded. He had a scientist's eyes, always observing, always curious. "I'm Woojin. I study visitors. Don't worry, studying is painless." The third person, a younger woman, didn't speak. She just watched them with eyes that seemed to see through them. Minho felt exposed under that gaze. "I'm Captain Minho," he said. He walked down the ramp and his crew followed. "This is Dr. Yuna, Engineer Dohyun, Pilot Hana, and Science Officer Jiho. We came here to make contact, to learn the truth about Earth." Taeyeon's smile didn't fade, but something sad entered her eyes. "The truth? Yes, you deserve that. You broke galactic law to get here. You're trapped now. You understand that, don't you?" "We found out," Minho said. "After we crossed. The barrier only traps those who break through illegally," Woojin explained. "It's designed that way. A punishment for violation, or maybe a protection. Depends on how you look at it. Can you help us leave?" Dohyun asked. The silent woman finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it seemed to echo. "No one can help you leave. You're here forever now. But forever on Earth is not the punishment you think it is." Taeyeon gestured toward the buildings. "Come. Let us show you what humanity has become. Let us explain why we sealed ourselves away. And let us tell you why your arrival, though illegal, may be exactly what we needed." The crew exchanged glances. They had no choice. They were trapped on this planet with beings who could do impossible things. They could only hope that the humans were as peaceful as they seemed. They followed the three humans into a world that would change them forever. 6 months passed. 6 months of living in a cage made of an entire planet. 6 months of watching their bodies slowly change. 6 months of feeling something growing in their minds that hadn't been there before. Captain Minho spent most of his time in a human city that existed in multiple states at once. During the day, it was physical. Buildings stood solid. People walked on streets. But at night, the city became something else. The buildings turned transparent. The people became light. The streets transformed into rivers of data flowing through digital space. He sat in a park that was sometimes real and sometimes just a simulation. A human child played nearby, throwing a ball that existed in 3 different dimensions at once. The ball was here, there, and nowhere all at the same time. "It's confusing at first," a voice said beside him. Minho turned. An elderly human man had sat down on the bench. Or maybe he had been there all along and Minho just hadn't noticed. "How do you live like this?" Minho asked. "Existing in so many states? Being so many things at once?" The old man smiled. "How do you live being only one thing? Don't you feel limited? Trapped in a single body, stuck in one moment at a time?" "That's called being alive," Minho said. "No," the old man corrected gently. "That's called being limited. Being alive is so much more." He showed Minho his history. The old man had been born before the convergence. He remembered being singular. He remembered dying in a war. He remembered being brought back through quantum resurrection. He remembered choosing to undergo the convergence. He remembered becoming more. "I was terrified," the old man admitted. "I thought I would lose myself. But I didn't lose anything. I gained everything. I'm still me, just more me than I ever was before." Minho thought about this. He had noticed changes in himself. Small things. He could sometimes feel what his crew members were feeling. When Yuna was sad, he felt an echo of that sadness. When Hana was angry, he felt heat in his chest. It was subtle, but it was there. "It's starting in you," the old man said. "The entanglement. Your consciousness is reaching out, looking for connections. In a year, maybe 2, you'll be able to link fully with others, and then you'll have a choice. Accept the convergence or resist it. What happens if I resist? You'll be alone, truly alone, surrounded by billions of connected minds but separate from all of them. I've seen others choose that path. It's a slow torture." Minho left the park feeling more confused than before. Meanwhile, Dr. Yuna was having the time of her life. She worked with human scientists in laboratories that existed halfway between physical and digital space. They showed her extinct species brought back to life through quantum archaeology. "We can reach into parallel timelines," a human scientist explained. "We find versions of Earth where these species didn't go extinct. We pull their genetic information across dimensional boundaries. Then we grow them here." Yuna watched a baby mammoth taking its first steps. Beside it, a dodo bird cleaned its feathers. In another chamber, a Tasmanian tiger hunted holographic prey. "This is incredible," Yuna whispered. She had spent her whole life studying extinction. Now she was watching extinction being reversed. "We can do more," the scientist said. "We can save species on other worlds. We can pull back beings that died centuries ago. We have the technology to end death itself across the entire galaxy." "Then why don't you?" Yuna asked. The scientist's expression grew sad. "Because we learned our lesson. We tried to help once. We went to a dying world and saved every species on it. We were heroes. For a generation. Then those species became dependent on us. They stopped adapting. They stopped growing. They became pets, not civilizations. We had to leave and let them fail. It was the kindest thing we could do." Yuna understood. Power without wisdom was just another form of cruelty. She went back to her quarters that night and felt something new. A connection. A thread in her mind that led to other minds. She could feel Minho's confusion. She could feel Hana's rage. She could feel Do-hyun's fear and Jiho's curiosity. They were becoming linked. Pilot Hana had found an unexpected peace. She spent her days with humans who taught her to fly in ways she never imagined. They didn't use ships. They became ships. They turned their consciousness into vessels that could cross space. "Your body is just a habit," a human pilot explained. "You wear it because you're used to it. But you don't need it. You can be anything. Go anywhere. You just have to let go," Hana tried. She closed her eyes and imagined being somewhere else. For just a moment, she felt herself stretch. Part of her was still on Earth, but another part was near Saturn looking at the rings. Then she snapped back. "It's hard," she gasped. "It gets easier," the pilot said. "After the convergence, it becomes natural. You'll be able to exist in multiple places without even thinking about it." But Hana didn't want that. She liked being singular. She liked being contained. The thought of spreading herself across space terrified her, yet she couldn't deny the appeal. She had lost her family to war, lost her world, lost everything. But here death wasn't permanent. The humans could bring back consciousness from quantum records. They could restore memories. They could make loss temporary. "Could you bring back people who died on other worlds?" she asked the pilot one day. "If we had their quantum signature, yes. But that information is usually lost. Without it, we can only create approximations, copies, not the real person." Hana felt a spark of hope die. Her family was truly gone. Even here, even with all this power, some losses were permanent. Engineer Do-hyun and Science Officer Jiho worked together constantly. They studied the barrier. They studied the convergence. They studied the quantum entanglement that was slowly transforming them. "I think I understand how it works," Jiho said one evening. They were in their ship, the Dauntless Path, running tests. "The entanglement isn't just linking us to Earth. It's rewriting our quantum structure. We're being transformed at the most basic level of reality. Can we stop it?" Do-hyun asked. "Yes, but the cost would be high. We'd have to completely isolate ourselves. No contact with humans. No exposure to their technology. We'd have to live in a shielded environment for the rest of our lives. That's not living." "No," Jiho agreed. "It's not." Do-hyun looked at his instruments, his ship, his tools, everything he had built his identity around. He was an engineer. He fixed things. But how do you fix yourself when the problem is evolution itself? "What do you think happens after the convergence?" he asked Jiho. The young scientist was quiet for a moment. "I think we become something new. Not human, not Calraxian or whatever species we were. Something that combines what we were with what they are. Hybrid consciousness. It should be impossible. But then most things here should be impossible." One evening, all 5 crew members met in their ship's common room. It was the first time they'd all been together in weeks. They had each been on their own journeys, learning different aspects of Earth's reality. "We need to decide," Minho said. "Accept the convergence or resist it." "Can we resist?" Hana asked. "Really? We can try," Do-hyun said. "Jiho and I have been working on shielding. We could build an isolation chamber, live in it, maybe slow down the transformation." "For how long?" Yuna asked. 10 years, 20? A lifetime of isolation while we watch humans live in paradise? "It wouldn't be paradise," Hana said. "It would be losing ourselves." "Would we lose ourselves?" Jiho asked. "Or would we become more than ourselves?" The question hung in the air. Minji appeared in the doorway. She had a habit of showing up when they needed guidance. You're asking the wrong question, she said. What's the right question? Minho asked. Not whether you should accept or resist, but what you want to become. The convergence doesn't erase who you are. It expands it. I'm still the Zelthian I was 200 years ago. But I'm also human. I'm both. I'm more. You make it sound easy, Hana said bitterly. It's not easy, Minji admitted. It's terrifying. You'll have moments where you don't recognize yourself, where you feel like you're losing your mind. But on the other side of that fear is something beautiful, a way of being that makes your old life feel like a dream. She left them to think. The crew sat in silence for a long time, each of them wrestling with the choice, each of them feeling the changes already happening in their bodies and minds, the connections forming, the boundaries dissolving, the future approaching like a wave they couldn't stop. Finally, Yuna spoke. I want to see what's possible. I've spent my whole life studying what was. I want to experience what could be. One by one, the others nodded. Not excited, not happy, but accepting. They would undergo the convergence. They would become something new. They would let go of who they were to discover who they might become. It was the hardest and bravest decision any of them had ever made. 1 year after their arrival on Earth, the crew of the Dauntless Path gathered for the convergence ceremony. It wasn't required. The transformation would happen eventually on its own, but doing it consciously with guidance made the process easier, less frightening, more controlled. They stood in a chamber that existed in 7 dimensions at once. Human guides surrounded them. Taeyeon was there, Woojin, Minji, others whose names they had learned over the months. Are you ready? Taeyeon asked. Minho looked at his crew. Yuna looked nervous but determined. Hana's jaw was set with resolve. Dohyun gripped Jiho's shoulder, both of them supporting each other. They were ready as anyone could be. Yes, Minho said. The chamber began to glow. The humans started singing, not with their voices, with their minds. The sound was impossible to describe. It was music and mathematics and emotion all woven together. It washed over the crew like a wave. Minho felt his consciousness start to expand. He could feel Yuna beside him, her mind touching his. He could feel Hana's fear and courage mixing together. He could feel Dohyun's analytical mind trying to understand the process even as it happened. He could feel Jiho's wonder and curiosity. Then he felt more. The humans. All of them. Billions of minds suddenly accessible. Not overwhelming. Not consuming. Just there, available, connected. He was still himself. Still Minho. Still the captain who had broken galactic law to reach Earth. But he was also more. He could feel the memories of humans who had lived centuries ago. He could access knowledge that had taken lifetimes to learn. He could be in multiple places at once. It was terrifying and beautiful. The convergence took hours, or maybe seconds. Time felt different now. When it was over, the 5 of them stood in the chamber, forever changed. They were no longer purely their original species. They were no longer purely individuals. They were hybrid consciousness, linked but distinct. Singular but collective, how do you feel? Woojin asked. Yuna answered first. Like I've been asleep my whole life and just woke up. The others nodded. There were no words adequate to describe it. They spent the next few weeks learning to control their new abilities, learning to exist in multiple states, learning to move through space without ships, learning to access the collective knowledge without losing themselves in it. Minho discovered he could be on his ship and in a human city at the same time. His consciousness simply split. Both versions of him were real. Both were him. Hana learned she could fly without a ship. She could turn her consciousness into pure energy and cross the solar system in moments. It was everything she had ever wanted. Yuna could now access millions of years of biological data. She could see evolution happen and fast forward. She could understand extinction and rebirth at levels she had never imagined. Dohyun could shape matter with his thoughts. He could grow buildings like humans did. He could repair his ship by simply asking the materials to fix themselves. Jiho could see quantum possibilities. He could look at any moment and see all the ways it could unfold. Past, present, and future became suggestions rather than fixed points. They were powerful. They were transformed. They were finally beginning to understand why humans had sealed themselves away. This much power was dangerous. Without wisdom, without restraint, they could reshape the galaxy according to their will, and that would destroy everything. Then 3 months after their convergence, everything changed. Alarms sounded across Earth. Not physical alarms. Mental ones. Every human consciousness received the warning simultaneously. Something was wrong in the galaxy. The crew gathered with Taeyeon and Woo Jin in a situation room that existed in pure data space. "What's happening?" Minho asked. Taeyeon's face was grim. She showed them sensor readings from deep space. A dead zone was spreading through the galaxy. Everywhere it touched, life simply stopped. Stars continued burning. Planets kept orbiting. But consciousness ceased. Civilizations went silent. Billions of minds just stopped existing. "It's a weapon," Woo Jin explained, "from the ancient war that nearly destroyed humanity 3,000 years ago. An entropy bomb. It feeds on conscious thought and converts it into void. We thought we had destroyed all of them, but one survived. Someone activated it. How do we stop it?" Jiho asked. His new quantum perception could see the weapon's structure. It was elegant and horrible. It would consume the entire galaxy within a decade. "We can't," Taeyeon said quietly. "Not from inside the barrier. We've been isolated too long. We don't have the reach anymore." Then a transmission came through the barrier. It was from the Galactic Council, the same council that had enforced Earth's quarantine for 3,000 years. The message was simple and desperate. "We were wrong. We need you." The council was admitting failure. They couldn't stop the entropy weapon. Their ships couldn't reach it. Their weapons couldn't destroy it. They needed help from the beings they had helped imprison, but humans couldn't leave the barrier. That had been the agreement. Earth had chosen isolation, unless someone could exist both inside and outside at once. Minji spoke up. "The crew. They're unique. They're not fully human. Not fully their original species. They're hybrid. They exist in a quantum state that shouldn't be possible. They might be able to cross the barrier." "For how long?" Dohyun asked. He was already running calculations. "We're entangled with Earth. If we go outside, how long before the universe rejects us?" "Hours," Jiho said. He could see the possibilities. "Maybe days if we're lucky. We'd be dying from the moment we left, ceasing to exist slowly. It would be agonizing." Yuna looked at her crewmates. "But we could do it. We could reach the weapon. We could teach the other species what humans taught us, how to link consciousness, how to transcend physical limitations, how to fight entropy with organized complexity." "It would kill us," Hana said, not arguing. "Just stating fact, maybe," Minho said. "Or maybe we'd become something new again. Something that can exist everywhere and nowhere. Something that bridges both states permanently." The crew looked at each other. They had come to Earth seeking answers. They had found them. They had been trapped. They had been transformed. Now they had a chance to use their transformation to save the galaxy that had exiled them. "We do it," they said together. One voice. 5 minds. United in purpose, the humans helped them prepare. They loaded the crew's consciousness with everything they would need. Every technique. Every piece of knowledge. Everything humanity had learned about transcending limitation. Then the crew boarded the dauntless path one last time. The ship had been transformed too. It was now half physical, half digital. It could exist in states that normal ships couldn't. As they approached the barrier from the inside, Taeyeon sent them a final message. "You're not just saving the galaxy. You're showing us that isolation was never the answer. That connection, even with its dangers, is what makes existence meaningful. Thank you." The ship touched the barrier. Pain exploded through their consciousness. The universe was rejecting them. They were paradoxes, beings that shouldn't exist trying to exist anyway. But they pushed through. The hybrid nature of their consciousness let them slip through cracks in reality that pure humans couldn't access. They emerged on the other side, bleeding existence, dying slowly but alive enough to complete their mission. They crossed the galaxy at speeds that should be impossible. They reached dying civilizations and taught them what humans had taught the crew: how to link minds, how to combine consciousness, how to fight the entropy weapon with organized complexity. Species that had been enemies for millennia learned to connect. Their combined consciousness created a network strong enough to contain the weapon. They wrapped it in layers of linked thought. They transformed its destructive energy into something else, something creative. The weapon was neutralized. The dead zone stopped spreading. The galaxy began to heal. But the crew was dying. Ceasing. Their quantum signatures were being erased by a universe that didn't want them to exist outside the barrier. In their final moments, They made one last choice. They didn't try to return to Earth. Instead, they scattered their consciousness across the galaxy. They became the bridge between humanity and everyone else, part physical, part digital, part Earth, part galaxy. They existed in the space between, permanent translators between isolation and connection. Years passed. Decades. The galaxy transformed. Dozens of species underwent their own versions of convergence. They learned to link consciousness while maintaining individuality. They learned to transcend without consuming. They learned the lessons humanity had spent 400 years in isolation to master. The old Galactic Council dissolved. In its place came the Collective, a network of evolved species helping each other grow. And at the center of it all, existing in quantum superposition across millions of worlds, were 5 consciousness patterns that had once been a crew. They were Minho, Yuna, Dohyun, Hana, and Jiho, still themselves, but also more. They existed everywhere and nowhere. They could be found on any world that needed guidance. They were the teachers who had learned by being trapped. They were the bridge between what was and what could be. The barrier around Earth came down. Humanity emerged, not as conquerors or saviors, but as colleagues, as friends, as fellow travelers in the universe's eternal journey toward greater complexity and understanding.